Okay, I think I'm recording. That's what it says anyway, Ed.
Okay.
You and I have been talking a couple of times before I left last week. Um, and I kind of wanted to cover the fact that what the foundation's doing, I don't think it's been publicized enough. I know we do it, but I don't know how many people follow the Facebook page and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to talk about compound testing, which has occurred. What's this year? 4 or 5?
2021, 4. Yep.
Which Rob just got back from Australia and did more testing, and that's all on the website.
Yep.
So, if you would, for us and for the audience, kind of tell everyone, this is from all the feedback and some of it good and bad. It's out. A lot of people are, I think, are under the misconception that you wrote a Bible. The book is cover to cover, and there's no more possible information that you'd be curious about. I know that's wrong. So if you'd
You
expand
never
on
run
that for
out
the
of
audience,
questions.
that'd be great. And then we'll talk through some of the stuff you and I discussed earlier.
I probably have more questions today than before I ever started the tall study.
No kidding. That's
You
always a good sign.
never hit the end of it.
No, you said this to me when I first met you that every time you do a test, you're going to have 10 more questions. And I've had people say, hey, man, you're going to eventually run out of content. And I'm like, no, no, absolutely. There's so much stuff to go digging in. What do you think? What are the top, like, 4 or 5 things that you did the study, you shot 2 rhinos, you've done some cool stuff. What would be your top 4 or 5 things that you say either, wow, I didn't think of that, or we got to test that?
Well, there's lots of things. Yeah, I I have a rough quantification of how high extreme, ultra extreme FOC affects the penetration. And I was trying to narrow it down because there's no question that every 1% increase gives you a greater percentage increase in penetration
Mm-hmm.
than the previous 1% did.
Right.
And it appears from the data that I've got so far, there's a big jump around somewhere between 25 and 26%. And then once you go over 30%, it's just out of sight. The
And now
difference.
you're talking about still all 12 factors, though, because
Oh,
we're going to
yes.
talk about
This
this
is on
too.
all 12. Yeah, you've got to have, well, at least an 11 factor.
Right.
Not necessarily a tapered shaft.
Right. But that's a 3-to-1 broadhead, paper tune, perfect flight, structural
Yep.
integrity, sharp as hell. A lot of
Yep.
people miss that. We're going to do another podcast on sharpening the clotting cascade. I want to do, but so just for the audience, and let's establish this right now, so that moving forward, if you're listening, when Ed talks about increasing FOC, he's not talking about lowering the mass of the shaft 100 grains and
Mm.
keeping the point heavy and increasing FOC that way. He's talking about all the factors and finding a way to get your FOC off the charts.
Yep. That's yeah, that 650 grain thing is so misunderstood and misinterpreted by people that it's absolutely ridiculous. Uh, you know, it, the biggest takeaway, if I could put it in a nutshell for people,
Mm-hmm.
is that if you have that 11 factor or 12 factor, if you had a tapered shaft error,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to have only pretty, I won't say every bone in the world, although it has done better than 5 inches of buffalo ball joint,
Hmm.
you've got 100% heavy bone penetration rate.
Right.
But
So,
you don't have it just because an arrow is 650 grains.
right. And you
You've
don't
got to
have it
have
necessarily
everything
with,
else.
right. And I'll clarify this too. The Ranch Fairy Broadhead is 200 grains, is shorter than the Tough Head, lower mechanical advantage. Still a good broadhead, but it is
Mhm.
not the Tough Head, the 3-to-1 long, narrow, low angle of attack broadhead. And that would be if you were shooting 650 grains and the Ranch Fairy head and not a tapered shaft, you only have 10 factors, right? Because that broadhead, I'm cutting my own throat here because I sell broadheads, but um, just to make that clear, that's not an 11 factor arrow because it's single bevel,
That's right.
because it's
It's got
not
too
the
low a mechanical
long
advantage of the
barrel.
broadhead.
Right. And you tested that
You got to have
extensively,
2.6 or higher
mechanical advantage.
mechanical advantage. At 2.6 and higher, 650 grain, all the other factors in place, gave 100% heavy bone breach rate.
Right. And I'm glad we clarified that because it's a really misunderstood thing. And
It,
so Ed knows this about me that this is on my big boy hunting arrows, that's my head, right? But my goal with all of the stuff I put out there is if I can get you to increase your FOC, get over 550, get to 600 grains, and go to a hand sharpened make those 3 or 4 steps. If I can get you to move a little bit, nobody, well, very few people just jump to 710.
yep.
And Ed knows that, and I'm glad you just confirmed that. But if we can get you to build something that's more lethal and has higher potential lethality, we're all in favor of that.
Every one of those factors that you add in improves the lethality of your arrow.
It's like a scorecard.
It is. If you want to have the best, you check all the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
If you want
Right.
to improve what you've got, check one box, check a couple of boxes. Every single one of them will improve the terminal performance of your arrow.
In in my own experience, because I've told this story before, and I'm going to make it the short version. The reason why I did this is because I was struggling so much shooting pigs at a known distance, and I started getting to where I wanted to shoot the big ones, and I was struggling, and I had nothing to lose by doing what I read. I mean, I read the old papers, and just this is way before I just jacked around and found out. I just did it on my own, right? Whatever. I can't get it worse. I didn't figure, and it turned out to be better. Um, the clarification point there is the more factors I added, and I think from my own experience, where I started with a longbow and shot the biggest pig I've ever killed to date with a 3-to-1, 12 factor, 650 grain arrow, and shot him right there, and it went out his ham. And it was like 4.5 feet of penetration. I bet that bow was whistling that arrow along at like 160 feet per second. And it
If
just went
that.
through him like, right, screaming, right? I think arrow flight is the hardest thing.
But that, the other stuff is actually pretty easy to do. Arrow flight requires time, effort, and unfortunately money.
Right.
You're going to spend a lot of money tinkering to get a setup that flies right off your bow.
Yeah.
But it's an absolutely critical factor. It's
I think
something
it's
you've got to have.
I think it's the most difficult, and I know it's the most overlooked because I've been on a lot of podcasts where it's kind of a debate situation or two different parties talking about the same thing, looking at each other, light and fast over here, and um, the industry preaches tune the bow, which can't necessarily be done with a stick bow, but and then if it tunes, it's good. And I found that to not be the case when the arrow was still 8 factors,
Mm-hmm.
right? Low mass, okay broadhead, decent arrow flight, And in my own personal hunting experience, and then testing intentionally by shooting pigs at a feeder, which is just the best thing ever because it's just repeatable and it's a hunting situation, I saw dramatic results. So from that, I wanted to uh, step across it while we're having a pause here in my own mental capabilities, apparently. This video is sponsored by Hunter's Blend Coffee. I'm wearing my no comply Hunter's Blend Coffee hat, and you'll get 10% off your purchase if you use code RF or code ABF. Mark is doing supporting the foundation that way. And for those of you who've ever wondered if you want to donate to the foundation and what we've been doing, that's the purpose of this video. Or not me, but what the Rob and the team have been doing. We're going to go forward and talk about compound testing that has been done, and the results are being posted on the Ashby website under supplemental reports. So I wanted to start, Ed, with your thoughts around, because obviously you're guiding what the test was going to be. What was the goal of what were you curious about for the first test that Rob did?
Well, initially, I wanted to look back at factors. The compound I tested with was a round wheel compound.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's the days that it was. Uh, there's been a lot of advancement in bows. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it's not what people think it is.
Right.
Even back when I was testing with compounds, you could get 280 feet per second.
Right.
Well, we're not doing a whole hell of a lot better than that now.
That's right.
And some of what they've done to get that velocity up is go to lighter arrows.
Right.
We were doing it with a somewhat heavier arrow than what they use now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
So,
no carbon. You're
yeah,
BC. You're before carbon.
yeah. It was only towards the end of my testing that, the last 4 or 5 years, that carbon was even available.
Mm-hmm. So, what were the goals for the first test? What were you like? If I'm thinking about it like this, you have this book of literature. Here you are, questions beyond, and then what was the? Why did we? What did we go to accomplish on that? Just to set like baseline for a compound, or was it
No,
more
no.
dramatic than that?
Well, that one, I wanted to see how much difference we get between what I was finding using traditional bows and what we would find with a state of the art compound.
And
And
Rob's
one of the
shooting
first
a
things I want,
Matthews at 80 pounds,
yeah,
so it's
was mechanical advantage. That's one of the
mhm,
things we looked at in the very first testing Rob did, was to compare, okay, are we still seeing this big advancement with mechanical advantage? The answer, yes. Now, he was shooting and still does, shoots 82 pounds at 29 inches in the bow that he's testing with. But with the full 11 factor error, because he wasn't using a tapered shaft, he's getting total pass throughs on Buffalo,
right.
changing nothing except the mechanical advantage of the broadhead. Same weight error,
Hmm.
same shaft, same everything. He didn't get exits anymore. They stopped against the offside ribs.
Mm-hmm.
So the mechanical advantage carries over. The same thing. And I've seen comments back from when I tested with a compound that, and I've made the statement that I had to quit using compounds because I was getting exit wounds. And then I was getting data I couldn't use.
Hmm.
Well, the exit wounds I were getting was with the best arrow system I could build.
Right. Right.
And I wasn't passing through. I was breaking the skin, poking out the other side 2 or 3 inches.
Hmm.
But then I was, not shooting anywhere. oh, 170 feet per second range.
Hmm.
Uh, so, now beef that up, same arrow setup or similar arrow setup, compound, we're getting pass throughs. But I found it very interesting that when we drop down to the lower mechanical advantage heads below 2.6, no more pass throughs, not even exit wounds.
Hmm.
Got the same thing I was getting. Rock them up against the ribs on the offside.
Right. So
Stick in the rib.
still lethal, but not the
Still
same
lethal,
high performance.
but yeah, but you're not getting that extra hole out the other side.
Right.
Chance of creating a pneumothorax. Better blood trails.
Right.
No shaft left in there to put pressure on the wound, impede the bleeding.
Right.
You get all the advantages of that pass through shot.
So you and I talked about this, and we've got a whole video on why pass-throughs are not good data. And now we're saying, well, it seems like, and I know you'll be able to explain this. We're talking out of both sides of our mouth. Pass-throughs are not good data. We have a whole series on. We have a whole podcast on that. But you just said we're seeing pass-throughs. That's not data. It
No,
is. And then you're seeing arrows stop.
but we knew we had an arrow system that would create exit wounds back from my testing.
Right.
So beefing it up with his 82-pound long draw compound, he's pushing air all the way through.
Right. Right.
But uh, we were building off the system that we already knew worked. So I'm not worried about that part. But what I found interesting was that we didn't see that increase in penetration with the lower mechanical advantage broadhead. Got the
Right.
same thing I got. That second penetration barrier, those offside ribs, you have an arrow starting out with less force than a 22 long rifle,
Right.
even out of the high energy compounds. So you're starting out with very little energy. And if you don't make effective use of it, even out of a high speed compound, you're not going to get that kind of penetration.
So you,
Not much difference than what I got. And I think some of that may be velocity difference, increased resistance. The faster it
oh,
goes, the greater the resistance.
You're talking about Newtonian physics?
I'm talking about Newtonian physics.
He's been dead for a while. He's no good. Nobody believes that crap anymore, Ed. He's dead.
I think they call it a law for a reason.
Well, nobody believes in the laws anymore. We just
It,
make it up.
it
It's all
it's not a
relative.
theory anymore.
It's not theory anymore. So you were seeing not on heavy bone impacts, but on thoracic hits with your longbow, which I think one of them's here. Probably was a test bow. That's the one you shot your last buffalo with, right?
It might be. I don't remember who's got what bow. I gave so many away.
So you were still seeing the lower mechanical advantage broadheads on a thoracic hit. So we're taking out the shoulder blade. We're not hitting the freaking humerus. We're not messing around with all that. We're
Nope.
hitting a normal shot with good shot placement, overlapping ribs. You were getting exit wounds with a 3-to-1, and you were hitting the rib cage with the lower mechanical advantage broadheads.
Yep.
Both lethal, but the best performing, the best possible performing system was still 12 factors at that time. And actually,
Mhm.
the foundation, by the way, everybody listening, they've restated that it's now an 11 factor arrow.
Yeah.
It's actually a statement on the website that Ed wrote up about they're
Unless you're
not
shooting
seeing
trad
the
gear,
difference in the
don't worry
tapered
about
shaft.
it. A tapered shaft.
Yeah,
It still makes a difference at the velocities you can get out of your traditional bows.
yeah. Right.
It's
So that's
just
a
that tiny little bit, but it's making so little difference with the compound, as we found out with the newer testing, that I'm not worried about the taper shaft anymore.
well, my point there is I started this thing by saying everybody acts like you wrote the Bible and then you can't continue. And that's not the case. He wrote the front cover, the steady went like this, there's no back on it.
Yeah,
And just to prove that, Ed, reinstated his own 12 factors as what was the law. The 12 commandments are now 11 commandments because the testing, this is what the foundation's doing, is showing that that was not necessary with a compound.
with the modern compounds.
Right. And that's what a good organization that's trying to find out what works does. When they see something, they go, that is not true for this situation.
And I think a part of that factor, part of that equation, may be the fact that we have much better carbon arrows now.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
The integrity and the stiffness of the carbon,
Yeah.
the rigidity of the carbon itself. Most carbon arrows back when I was doing it was longitudinal carbon.
Hmm.
Now you've got all these beautiful woven carbon fiber shafts that are a lot more rigid, and I
When I
think that
first started talking to Sirius before they became a sponsor, they handed me those Apollos and they have the woven, they're linear carbon wrapped. And I was talking to Andy, who had the company before Seth, and he said that wrap dampens the spine effect of the shafts and makes them more consistent. And then he went into the stuff, and I just went, you know, he could explain why that weave on the exterior of the shaft, because he gave me a dozen. I bare shafted them, and it was like it was the fastest I'd ever bare shafted shafts. I called him on the phone and said, "What in the hell are these things?" Because I used to have to really knock tune. I'd do three or four at a time, set them down, go inside, come back the next day. It took a while. About the time you think you're going to punch the dog, you put your bow down because it's probably you. That's what I found out. So I'd get three or four of them, teet, 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 teet. Three or four would tune, I'd be done. I did a dozen Apollos in like 35 or 40 minutes, and I shot them twice because I was like, what in the hell? How is that happening? Because they were more consistent. And then I called him and he told me about the carbon weave. So that they are super durable too. And maybe I wonder if that consistency off the bow, this is totally speculation, is also at impact.
oh, I would think so. I would absolutely acceleration, deceleration. You're going to get
It's
the
yeah, it's the
same
same thing in
response
reverse,
just
right?
the
It's the
other
same
end.
thing in reverse.
Yeah.
Man, see, that's why I talk to Ed. These great ideas come up in my head, and I go, "Wow, I never thought of it that way." But it's the same problem backwards. When you launch it, it gets a bunch of flex, and then when it hits something, it's flexing again. And if it's more consistent, then it's less likely to kick or skip, I would think, because
Mhm.
it's impacting more consistently. Awesome. So,
Another thing that was starting to show up, and I've been talking to Rob about this, and we've got 4 years worth of data from the compounds.
mhm,
Along with that, you've got a lot of broadheads now being made with these exotic modern steels.
mhm,
Not all of those modern steels are holding up as well as the old carbon steel original 190 grain grizzly I was using.
mhm. What do you mean by that, though? Are they bending? Are they
They're,
chattering? Are they dulling?
they are breaking, they are chipping, they're losing their sharpness to a greater degree.
Mm,
So, carbon steel is not bad stuff if it's tempered correctly.
right. Yeah, I found that out.
It's really a very durable stuff. And I think some of these exotic steels are more to sell a product than they are to improve the performance because we're not seeing the performance improvement that I would expect.
I think that's your own fault, and I'll tell you why. Because I think you talked pretty extensively, and I'll come around on this.
Hmm?
52 Rockwell was a number that stuck in my head. So,
Well, that was for the Grizzly.
okay.
The 190 Grizzly. I had a large number of those Rockwell hardness tested.
Hmm.
None were below 52 and none were above 54.
Oh, they were that close, and
They were that close, and
wow,
that's out several batches. I didn't tell you how many.
their temper process must have been great. So, what could have possibly happened is you said 52, everybody said 52 is the magic number, and it doesn't matter what the steel is, it's 52.
No, 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 no.
No,
This
no, no. That's what I'm saying. I
was
think that's,
different.
you said it was a marketing thing. I think they would say, Ed said 52. We'll make it out of Willy Whacker, stainless, whatever, but it's 52. And your point being that these new steels, they get too brittle. They're,
Are too soft. I mean, it runs the gamut. We're seeing rolled edges. I rarely ever got a rolled edge on a grizzly unless I hit a rock.
hmm. I've seen that with some of the stainless stuff. But once again, it goes back to my philosophy. I can get you to move from mechanical to a Magnus single bevel, then and you take a step up and get some aeroflight, you're going to be two factors moving in the right direction. Like it just helps. But we're seeing a little bit on some of the broadheads exactly what you're talking about. Dead deer, real dead deer, short trails, or they flop them, but the broadheads look a little wonky. I don't know how many of those hit the ground though. Just for
Well,
everybody
that's what you don't
listening,
know unless you're catching them in the animal.
correct.
You
You
know, we do
cannot
test.
evaluate, and you should not bash any broadhead if you shot through something and hit the dirt.
If it went in the dirt, all bets are off.
You have no idea what caused it. That's what we're talking
When
about.
or where it occurred.
It's just not really fair to anyone. I don't care who's making it.
That's
You
right.
shouldn't light them up.
Now,
You shouldn't.
those you just throw out. But
Yeah.
that's the advantage of what we're doing now is that, with the exception of the tough head, uh, everything we're testing, pre-sharpness, post-sharpness, rolled edges, damage to the broadhead, are ones that stayed in the animal. They didn't hit any dirt. They hit tissues.
You and I were talking about I'm actually gonna start shooting some pigs with a rifle um in the head, so I've got a fully intact chest wall, do some shots this way and all that good stuff because one arrow in them means that there's a hole in them.
Don't throw his hips away. They're great for testing on bone impact.
Right.
That pelvic girdle's pretty tough.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Headshots and all that. The To do that correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, we probably need to do a I want to put a foam target behind them to catch them. But I
Yeah,
would, to be honest and intellectually square, you'd want to do a sharpness test on the foam.
yeah, yeah. See how much degradation you get on
Right.
pure foam.
So if you sharpen the broadhead to 150 on the best scale and it hits the foam and it goes to 170, you add that to your results after passing through animal X.
Yes, you factor that in to the difference, the amount of sharpness lost.
But if hitting the ground is a zero,
It- that's just like trying to judge penetration when you got to pass through an exit. You can't use it.
right,
It- you don't know what happened.
right, right. Okay, okay. So I don't know. I don't remember which year it was. I think Rhonda went in 22. Or did she go on all of them?
I believe 22.
And she was shooting 39
But
pounds,
39 pounds, I looked it up. 39 pounds at 25.5 inches.
and her arrows were what? 30%.
775 grain, 30% FOC. That's with a tough head. She was shooting 150 feet per second. The average was 22 inches of penetration, and every shot stopped on the offside rib.
150 feet per second?
Well, I'm not surprised. I
Mm.
got the same results with an error very similar to that out of a 40-pound Bear Formula silver target recurve shooting a blazing fast 119 feet per second at
Penetration all the way to the
impact.
thorax.
Now, she's got launch velocity here at 150. My impact velocity was 119.
And that was five in a row on a downed Cape Buffalo in the thorax, like
Yeah,
just rib cage hits.
yeah,
But it repeated itself over and over and over 5 times in a row.
every shot.
Unbelievable.
Well, now we've got two bows, a compound at 39 pounds and a 40-pound recurve with a correct error set up,
Yeah, all factors.
all factors in there, lodging up against the offside rib cage,
Yeah,
complete
nobody believes that.
transthoracic penetration.
That's incredible. I remember reading that and I was just like, that's
And that's how
then
much difference error setup can make. You
one
know, I
point I want to make out of that
yeah,
because there's a lot of posts on a one shot wonder test. And what I mean
yeah,
by that is somebody will shoot one shot and say, oh, that's the result.
yeah,
You can't do that. Well, you can, but you're lying to yourself and everyone else just for the clicks. So
yeah,
the reason why Rhonda shot, so it's expensive to get it down to Cape Buffalo.
yeah.
Just getting your butt to Africa in a situation to get a buffalo is
That's
expensive.
expensive.
And then to waste, in air quotes, that buffalo for testing on those 5 shots is worth it
Yeah,
because, and Ed taught me this, you can't do one shot. You have to do a group and find the mean because you don't know every hit's different.
and that's why you've got to do it on live tissues or real tissues, is because all of those variables are in there when
Yeah,
you actually hunt the animal.
right.
And you can't replicate that synthetically.
You can't
Just no,
replicate the fact that the rib tapers towards the back. She may have hit one that was overlapped and only hit one rib on the front,
that's right.
that kind of thing. It's pretty consistent, but not really super consistent.
Yeah. And what that tells me that with her, the repeatability is that it didn't matter where you hit on the rib, the edge of it, the thickest part of it, you had enough energy to carry on through before all of the work of that arrow, all the force of that arrow is used up
Right,
to reach the offside.
right.
But you didn't have enough with any of them to breach that offside rib.
Right. Be cool to test where that is. Keep cranking the bow up until it gets there. That would be super interesting. I mean, the fact that she got so I just tied this together. Earlier we were talking about when you change the broadhead with a 82-pound compound, this kind of makes the point. And you took the 11 factors down to 10 because
Yep.
you changed the broadhead. The 82-pound compound got as much penetration
No more
as
than she got at 39 pounds.
no more.
No more. Some
That's a
even got less where they had real bad mechanical advantage. You know, there's some pretty wide single bevels out there
right,
that Rob tested. You know, they got 12, 14 inches of penetration. That's all out of his 82 pound.
right.
Same weight, 300 grain broadheads. Same weight as tough head. That's one of the things we wanted to look at was why he had those. Is he had all these different mechanical advantages
Hmm.
in single blade heads
Right,
in that first series of testing to
right.
look to see what, was this effect still there? And if so, how critical is it? Well, it's still there and it's still absolutely critical.
For maximum penetration potential.
Yes.
No, Ed Ashby, I think, is going to nod his head forward and say a lot of those shots are lethal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
100%. Changed in the broadheads, they're still lethal, but
Hmm.
you have reduced your possibility, your penetration potential to okay, half minimum kind of probably get it done arrow to from this is the
Yeah.
this is the crap right here that works like
Yeah. If
crazy.
you've ever followed a Cape Buffalo that's wounded and still on his feet, you'll understand that you want all the lethality you can get.
Your shotgun that you showed me with the ghost ring is not good for Cape Buffalo, I would assume.
Well, actually, it might be with the right loading
With a
because
slug?
we had a client, Mike Aldersey from Australia, take a 12 bore paradox, and he killed the whop out of a Cape Buffalo one shot, went
No
slam.
kidding. No
And
kidding.
there
Well,
are
just
a number of people over there. Back when it was Rhodesia,
mhm.
they would give their game scout that patrolled their crops and their fields at night 12 gauges loaded with Brennicky slugs, and they shot buffalo with them routinely.
No kidding. Well, that's all you got. You might as well take a pop at them, see what happens.
Yeah, at close range, 12 gauge is very lethal. The thing is, it's got to be really close range.
Yeah, yeah. Halitosis distance is what Mr. Capstick called it.
Yeah, and they do
Oh
have
my
really bad
goodness.
breath.
What else came out of has anything surprised you from the testing that Rob has done? And then
Well, yeah,
and then I want to
what we're
talk
talking about
about
with the
his
seal
I
has
want to
been
talk
has
about his
really
Argentina
surprised.
live hunt buffalo for the naysayers out there on this 10 factor thing.
Uh, I have been amazed that he has consistently, I mean, 100%, had pass throughs on buffalo, except the one frontal shot, which lodged against the pelvic girdle, and the one that hit the knuckle joint on the shoulder.
Because you said it couldn't be done, but we did it.
Well, I know I told Rob I didn't know if it could be done.
Yeah, right.
I had
Phrase it true. Phrase it correctly, Troy. We're trying to get along
That's
here.
right. It's 5.5 inches of bone, and I just wasn't sure that that was doable.
Size of a
Now I can
softball?
say, yeah, you can do that.
Is it the size of a softball? Somewhere between a tennis ball and softball?
Oh no, this much 5.5 inches is size of
Softball.
really large grapefruit.
Oh, yeah. See, I've never been around one, so I don't know what big is.
Hmm.
And he split it completely in
You
half.
got a ruler, hadn't you?
Yeah, yeah, no, I got that, but I'm trying to conceptualize it for the audience. Grapefruit's a better example. Um,
I could have made a really dirty joke out of that, but I'm not going
we're
to.
gonna pass on that one. So interestingly, in the 23 is when he did Argentina or two.
3 was Argentina.
So he went,
I believe is right.
the Argentinian buffalo are the biggest ones. They're
They are the
bigger
biggest in body size. Yes.
of all of them on the planet.
They're the ones that have the kind of smaller hooked horns,
Right.
but body size, yeah, it's not uncommon for them to reach 3,000 pounds. Well, that's darn near 2 Cape Buffalo put together.
Huge. So he went down in mass. He shot,
He shot that intentionally with a 650 grain.
uh-huh.
Okay, with you know 11 factor when he did testing after it was down, unless you had a perfect broadside shot, which he had on the first shot that killed the buffalo, it wouldn't do the job.
The
It didn't have enough
650
penetration.
grains wouldn't do the job on a 3,000 pound animal.
Well, the whole arrow setup that he was using didn't it didn't you don't know what if you change anything on there, but if you change to a different broadhead, well, you've changed everything You got to test it again, see what it does.
Right?
Like everything else, I would use enough air,
Yeah, right.
use enough gun.
Right.
I always felt like, something in the neighborhood of 850 grains was absolute minimum that I wanted to use on a buffalo. And there's no
Buffalo.
upper limit as long as your bow will throw it.
Right.
My
That's one
rhino
of those.
arrow worked fine. It was 1,286 grains.
I was I was reading one of the tests and Rob was after hippo and y'all made a note in that test in the supplemental reports that the arrows you tested on the buffaloes that during that hunt, which was supposed to be a hippo hunt, um, were much higher mass because of the
It was
hippo hunt
1,100 grains, I think.
than normal, and they were flying through the buffaloes like they weren't even like they were
Oh, yeah.
rabbits
Just zip.
because they were so overbuilt because they were hippo arrows.
Yeah, you're getting up into hippo elephant arrows at that weight.
Yeah, 100%. That's wild. So wild. So covered the arrow flight. We talked about shafts. We talked about what the foundation's been doing. He just got back from Australia. I saw the great big buffalo he shot, which was a monster. And I think they were after one that was bigger and they never got it.
Yeah. He did
Um,
shoot a
what
second buffalo too, a called buffalo. I haven't seen all of what he didn't test as much as he wanted to because he had like 10 days and he ended up shooting two buffalo and
bantang
scrub bull,
and a
which is
bantang?
more than a wild Brahmin.
Did the testing that was continued there was for mass or for mechanical advantage, or do you remember what they were?
I don't know. I haven't seen his review of what he's got yet because he's been running around kind of busy.
Yeah,
The oil business is kind of taking off.
we need. I think our what we ought to do next test if we ever get some big animals, and I'm going to certainly do this on pigs, is start playing with the lighter stuff, so we can do comparative analysis, 650 versus the world on
Yeah.
North America stuff. Um, Change the broadheads. That's not hard for me to do. Make the arrows with different broadheads platforms wouldn't be hard to do. One of the things that will come out, and I know I will see this on pigs because they're not that big and they're not very wide. They're tall, but their thorax isn't a wide one is probably 14 inches skin to skin. I mean, that would be a
Yeah.
humongous one. Huge. Those average pigs we pop all the time are 10 inches skin to skin, maybe,
Yeah.
because they're just kind of narrow chested. Um, we're going to see a lot of broadheads, even if you change the broadhead, punch out the other side.
Oh, yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of chatter about out the other side's enough.
But you've left the shaft in there. You've got
Right.
that pressure against the tissues to impede hemorrhaging.
Right.
The goal at every shot should be a complete pass through.
I think that's one of the misunderstandings, and I'm going to make those more points on my videos and stuff that I personally have seen it, and I have set the bar at pass through, and that's not the common mental result that it's being talked about in the atmosphere out there.
Mm,
Dead is they don't care how it dies. If it died, the arrow was fine. If it took 250 yards to run off, or it died in 30 seconds, or 30 yards, excuse me, then that's the same. And for the audience, my struggle with that is this. Um, the further they go, so if you leave the shaft in them and the shaft is the reason that they go further, There's no way to prove this. We just know that the medical world will tell
Well,
you,
we know it from humans with
no, I got that. I
yeah,
was about to say that. And you were going to say,
embedded objects in a human. You leave them in there. You don't pull them out.
right.
So you're where you can control the increase in hemorrhaging that's going to happen.
And maybe a doctor with, some special skills to do microsurgery and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Some clamps are good, sterile environment's good, that kind of thing. But um, because pigs don't bleed, they hate to bleed. They have long hair, they have a very
Mm.
deep thorax, the blood tends to go with gravity, and they just don't really bleed well. My
Yeah,
average
people say
distance to
bleed
blood
like a
is,
stuck pig doesn't work.
yeah, my average distance to blood on a pig is about 30 yards. I rarely look at the impact. I look kind of quick and then I start tracking tracks because we have sandy ground, so you can kind of tell where they're going. And obviously, you saw them run off. And I just send somebody and I say, start looking
When I
out
was
there.
trying to collect blood trail data, I found that most blood trails don't start to 25, 30 yards.
Right,
That's sort of the average
right.
for one to start hemorrhaging outside.
And I accidentally ran into that because I shot enough of them after a while that I would just go, he kind of went by that tree. I'm just going over there to start there. I didn't even look at
Yeah,
the impact point.
yeah,
And then I reverse engineered and said, well, you're walking about, I have most of my shots set up that they have to clear 30 or 40 yards before there's any brush. It's 100% intentional. I want them to run a ways before they get in the crap.
yeah,
And if the animal is running full speed for whatever reason, your blood trail is going to suffer by sheer. Take your truck, drive it 20, and pour a Coke out the window and watch it
yeah.
just spray all over the place.
It has to. You only got a certain amount coming out. And the faster you go, the wider dispersion of drops you're going to have.
I shot a black buck antelope in, I shot about 10 of them, but this one that I killed, I was just sitting in a big oak tree by some dung piles, and here it comes. And I was shooting a longbow, and he was about 6 yards. I was up just standing in the tree, and I shot him almost straight down. And the arrow went in by the spine and came out right here. And he took off. Those some bitches can go.
Yeah, they can.
He would look like he had gone from 60 pounds to about 9 feet long and was hauling across them as freaking fools. And then he just rolls up, right? He was done. He went 120 yards. I watched him because West Texas is pretty open. And then I saw him roll up and I was like, okay, well, go over there. Just out of curiosity, I tried to find blood. None. This is an exit wound
Down.
low in the sternum, which
Whoa.
the sternum sucks because it's pretty flexible
Yeah.
and it tends to close the hole just because it's real flexible or you couldn't breathe. If your sternum didn't move, you'd die. And there was blood all over him when I got to him. Do I know if he was laying on the ground, inhaling and exhaling and blowing it out? Probably, just from my background. But there was not much blood. And my point is that is an extreme case because he ran so fast, but your goal should be to always put him on the ground in a hurry, not shoot for a blood trail. Like,
Yeah.
kill him.
Kill them.
In my head, that switch flipped in like 2016. I was like, why don't we just kill them? Why do we shoot them and expect a blood trail 45 minutes later? Why don't we just roll them up and shoot them in the heart or above the heart? And that switch just literally, because I shot 4 or 5 that went 40 yards, and I was like, that's way cooler than getting your buddies and burning flashlights that nobody has batteries for. At least back in the day. Now everybody's got their cell phones out doing this, and they're terrible.
Carbide
Right.
lamp. You ever try? You ever try to use carbide lamps?
Oh, I had
We
I
had in the
had
old
a
days.
I had a Coleman with the foil on the back.
Yeah.
It tilted like that. It got hotter than hell,
Yep.
but it worked pretty good. That damn blood would pop with that thing. But I remember, and I tell all my nephews and my children and people who come hunting with them, I said, I want you lower in the vital V. I want them dead. I don't want them running around. We'll worry about the blood trail later. And when that switch flips in your head, it makes a lot of sense to
Well,
not
it does.
just
Yeah, I years ago I took a lot of flack on some, chat site. That was the archery chat sites. I don't know what you call them. They're not like we have now, but there's still some around like trad
Mhm.
gang, things like that. Because I told people that I I hunted everything from rabbits up with my buffalo arrows, but I shot whitetail size animals to break the shoulders
Right,
because I could do it,
right,
and I had tested it. I knew I could do it,
right,
so I didn't hesitate to try to break out a shoulder.
right.
Quartering shot, go to offside shoulder. It slows them down, and I was going to
Oh,
get a pass through with it every shot.
right. That's one of the things I talked to Jake about early on when I first met you guys and a couple other people who have really like they're hunting everything with 750. They just
Mhm.
everything gets the same medicine.
Well, like I said, I would prefer 850 up on a buffalo,
Sure.
but with it, well, like Rhonda's arrow was 775,
Hmm.
and that's, I think, if I remember right, the ones I tested with were 778 grains out of that 40-pound recurve,
Mm,
and they were enough to kill a buffalo.
right. But the guys that I've talked to who've at least gone over 650 and have are shooting the tough head type heads, they don't worry about it anymore, especially on deer. They're just like, whatever. Now, I want you to not misunderstand. I get accused of this a lot. You just say shoot them anywhere. That's not true. I advocate for broadside shots. I advocate for quartering away shots. I advocate for responsible shot angles. But what
Mhm.
you can do is aim at the bone on the other side and make them a three wheeler.
Yeah,
I
and it
don't
slows him down. I
advocate,
don't care what he is.
right. I don't advocate for 100% of the time you just take whatever shot you want. No, I don't think that's
Oh no,
responsible.
you can't with it, nothing. You can take whatever shots you want.
Right,
You got to know. You can only find out through testing, but
right,
you've got to know the capability of the equipment you're using, and you shoot within that capability. If I'm shooting my 500 nitro, I can shoot any animal from any angle.
right,
If I'm shooting my 22 Hornet, I can't do that.
right, right.
And
100%.
everything in between goes through stages of what
Well, I
shots you.
think a better example, that's a good example for Africa stuff and big stuff. The 375 is the 30-06 of Africa.
It is.
But the things you could do with a 500 nitro and an 800 grain arrow with a tough head are not comparative to what you would probably do with a 375, which is be a little pickier about where you're putting it.
Your shot placement has got to be pretty precise with a 375 on the big stuff. It will do the job, but you've got to do your job with it. Where
Oh,
with
that's a
that
great.
500, you got a lot of leeway. You know.
It's like the 6.5 Creedmoor. You just shoot within 10 feet of them and it sucks their lungs out.
Yeah, right.
Um, that's a great analogy for the heavy versus light stuff. And I'm going to do a whole video on that because I keep getting a lot of people, and this is not people who are negative or positive. They're just saying, what's the minimum? And I say, well, the only testing we have shows that 650 is still the minimum, still in work. Go to foundation. We're trying. That's what this whole
In an
video is about.
11 factor era.
Right. But you said something really interesting there. A 375 is an adequate rifle on the big stuff when but you have to be more precise and picky,
With your
and
shot.
Murphy can't show up.
You, you can frontal brain shoot an elephant with a 375 and dump him in his tracks.
Hmm.
But you miss his brain by even a half inch, and you got an elephant that you're probably never going to see again. He's gone.
Or you're not
Or
gonna.
he's going to be standing on top of you.
He's
You
gonna be
take your
grabbing you by
pick.
the feet and beating you on a tree with his trunk.
But you can miss the brain 2 or 3 inches with a 500 and knock him out.
Right, and then plug him again to
Then
make
you
sure
plug
he's
him
done.
again.
Hmm.
My brother did that on one of his elephants, stunned it, and had to put
No
a second
kidding.
shot in it. He missed the brain by about 4 inches. That was with a 460 Weatherby, 8,000 foot pounds of energy.
It's like shooting an F-250.
Yeah.
That's wild. Then that just absolutely, that gun analogy supports something that I've said to a lot of people is if you want to go to 500 grains, let's say you're in for the single bevel, but you don't want to go heavy, and you're going to shoot 500 grains in a single bevel, like a 200 grain broadhead on an aluminum insert, 510 grains or
Yeah.
whatever. I tell every one of those people, expect no miracles, do not be irresponsible, and only take normal shot angles. And you'll see advanced performance from the single bevel, but you
Yeah.
can't expect bone. Do not take quarter and two shots and stuff. Do not intentionally
No,
shoot at the bones. If you want to
no.
do it, fine.
Yeah. And again, most people never get to test.
Yeah.
They don't have the access to animals. And here in Texas, unless you own the property or are good friends with somebody that owns property,
Hmm.
you don't have access to it here either.
Right.
Now that was one of the great things of Africa. It is there was free hunting everywhere if you knew where to go.
Mm.
And the people knew you and they developed a little confidence in you. And
And
um,
then that opened up the testing. And the same, I assume back then in Australia was the same way. Like they were like, yeah, shoot
right.
the buffaloes, get rid of the damn things.
Well, yeah, they tried for years to eradicate them and couldn't do it.
They're like Neil Guy in South Texas. They just thought the fences were interesting.
Yeah.
So for everybody listening, there's a thing called a Neil Guy. They live pretty deep in South Texas, and one of the ranches down there, the big ranches, tried to domesticate them for a meat animal, and the Neil Guy said, "Fence? I think it's interesting, but no." And now they're running wild down there. There's a lot of
That's like an eland. Eland's, he's 2,000 pounds plus.
uh-huh.
I've actually weighed one that was 2,600 pounds.
Good night.
But you put up a high chain link fence, they can flat foot it. They don't even take a running start.
I had that happen in Namibia. I was with my guide, and it was real green, so water holing wasn't working. So we were out stalking, and I saw some Tommies, and they were kind of going over this hill. So I go around the hill to try to cut the Tommies off, and I spook some eland. They had a 10-foot high fence.
Yep.
They cleared it. The one of them hit his front hooves on it, but the rest of them just bounded over it. Like six of them jumped the high fence.
Well,
I
he
was
was
like,
the one that drug his foot there. He was actually one that's capable of leaping a lot higher. He thought, you don't have
yeah,
to
don't
jump.
worry about that.
This is like low hurdles.
I couldn't believe it because they're so big. They don't look like they could jump at all.
They don't. You look at him and he looks like a Brahma out there. No way in the world he's going to jump.
Hmm. They had an interesting fence. I'm used to the fences here. All the posts are in the ground.
Yeah.
Their fence, because the animals are big, wildebeests and elands and kudu and all that good stuff that might slam into the fence,
Yep.
was a post, and then they had the half-inch rebar, but it was just touching the ground, and there would be like five pieces of, so the fence was flexible.
Yeah.
So
You
if
got
they
to have some
slam
depth.
into it, it would throw them back into the freaking place. I mean, it was a 60,000 acre place with a fence around it, so it wasn't exactly like killing them in a trap.
Yeah.
But and the guy did that because he was importing stuff that wasn't in that part of the country, blah blah blah, for all the hunters. But I thought that was an interesting concept that he said, yeah, if it's more flexible, they just bounce off of it, and we don't have to fix the fence all the time. He said if it's tied down, they'll break it. He said, no problem.
Yeah, you get two classes of animals, those that bounce off and those that jump over.
That was amazing. My guy was like, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to go get the Tommies and go around the corner here. Elon like, yeah, what are you doing here? You're an idiot. Took off running. All right. Well, that's what I wanted to cover today. Primarily that the foundation is testing. There's been a modification to the factors, then that's now an 11 factor arrow for compounds. Didn't find the tapered shaft was good, bad, or indifferent. Still a factor in there recommended for uh, for traditional bows, but you probably get away with it with a, I would assume, with a parallel shaft because the shafts are so much better. And then the results we're seeing is, despite the pass throughs aren't good data, the highest performer is still the broadhead.
Yeah,
You change the broadhead and go to 10 factors because you made a broadhead change, you are going to have less performance, lower
that's right.
performance when you could have maximum performance.
Well, it's going to take a long time because we don't have access to the free buffalo that I had.
Uh-huh.
But it, it appears to me that this 2.6 mechanical advantage is going to hold, even with the high energy compounds of today.
Mm-hmm.
That if you want 100% guaranteed breaking a heavy bone, you're going to have to be up above that 2.6.
Right.
In this case, we might be looking at the heavy bone on the offside rib, or considering both ribs together. Hey, heavy bone. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
got a inch and three quarters of bone if you put the two together.
Yeah, pretty solid.
Yeah,
And that would be the
they're
scapular
not
ridge
soft
on a,
bones either.
I got a pig shoulder blade here I'm going to do a video on again. The scapular ridge right there. It's
Oh,
been
measure
cooked,
the
so it's a little
thickness
bent,
right
but
there.
I mean, look how that's
Yeah,
that's
that's
not
heavy
thin,
bone.
right? And that is horrible.
That is horrible.
I mean, that is, you hit this, you're talking trouble city, not to mention the skip. A
Well,
lot of
if
broadheads
you
are
hit
going
it
to
off
have trouble
center,
not skipping off that.
you redirect. Then you
Yeah,
got to hit the scapular flat with a lot of your energy being dissipated.
right.
If you hit it dead center, you got a lot of bone to go through.
And just for everybody's clarification, this is the inside. This is if you're shooting and hitting you're hitting that. This is the impact side. This side's against the rib cage like that. And one of the reasons why shoulder shots don't bleed very well is because the shoulder
That's right
goes like
there.
that over the holes.
Yep.
Just for clarification on that. But yeah, I'm gonna actually gonna get the calipers out because I understand market pigs are probably 250, 200. They're not
Yeah,
600 pounds.
they're not the super big pigs. Yeah.
Yeah. And this bone is still crazy, crazy thick. Not to mention that part. I don't know. That's just a horrible spot to hit one. But
And
yeah, I
you
got
don't have
this
the
out. We
ball
were
joint below it. See what the ball joint measured.
guy made a pulled pork and I went, whoop, I'm taking that. Make a video out of that. Okay, Ed, thank you very much for your time today.
Oh,
You,
most welcome. Enjoyed it.
you and I talked earlier. We're going to do two or three more videos on this.
And
So
this is just like
maybe
testing.
later this week we'll get together before I leave Texas, but going on a vacation with Mrs. Fowler. But I really we need to cover the clotting cascade. I've been doing a bunch of videos with my lung and my heart recently. I was on with Becoming a Bow Hunter podcast. I was on with Christian at Babcock at Hunter's Advantage and Huntivore podcast and talking about lobes and airways and all that good stuff. But we did have not covered the clotting cascade, which is a physiologic fact. News flash and spoiler alert. You're going to want to listen to that, but you've got fix-a-flat in your blood.
Yeah,
Say.
they help.
But we'll talk through why that's an
Little
important thing.
slime.
Yeah, slime, right? And why the sharp stuff matters. And Ed, if you'll either you'll probably be able to recall it from memory, but maybe we'll pull up the detail on your sharpness testing where you had the buffalo hides. That's all you did.
Yep.
And rough edge, filed edge, smooth edge, stropped edge, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. We'll talk through that just so the audience and everybody listening can get a grip on how important
Edge finish is.
one of these is. Get your ranch face drop.
Smoothest, sharpest, thinnest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much. And I'll be in touch. And everybody out there, thanks for listening and support. Once again, Hunter's Blend will donate 10% of your purchase back to the foundation and help the testing continue. And that will probably continue because I know Rob has a buffalo problem now. He assures me he has a buffalo problem and he'll want to go back after him. So, y'all have a great day. Thanks, Ed. We'll see you around.
Thank you, sir.